Ladies and gentlemen, what was expected to be a routine election night has turned into something far more troubling. While many Canadians were watching the results come in, reports started emerging that raised serious questions about how this election was handled. Mark Carney, who stepped into a leadership role without ever being elected, was quick to celebrate. His team was already speaking of victory before many Canadians had a chance to process what was unfolding. But behind the scenes, what we saw was not confidence, it was confusion. There were reports of ballot boxes being found in private homes, election materials handled in ways that fall far below expected standards, and footage of ballots stored in kitchens and living rooms. These aren't minor errors. This points to a much larger issue about transparency, accountability, and public trust in our democratic process. And yes, many ballots were marked in pencil, raising real concerns about security and accuracy. Canadians want to believe their vote is secure and properly counted. But when even the basics, like safe handling and proper materials, come into question, people naturally lose confidence. This isn't about conspiracy. It's about facts, real footage, eyewitness reports, and a growing wave of public concern. Voters deserve to know their voices were heard fairly, and that the systems in place are being held to the highest standard. Mark Carney may be trying to move forward, but many Canadians are still asking, what really happened on election night, and how do we make sure it doesn't happen again? Which people, Mark? The ones seen in condo units filling out ballots with pencils? That's where this story shifts. From concerning to deeply serious, Elections Canada, once a global example of fair and trusted electoral management, offered explanations that left many Canadians unsettled. When asked about the use of pencils for marking ballots, their response was that it's standard procedure. But in a country where grocery stores now use digital signatures and styluses, relying on basic pencils for a federal election doesn't inspire much confidence. The bigger issue? Ballot security. Rather than being securely stored, some ballots were reportedly taken into private homes, unsupervised, with no chain of custody and no clear accountability. There were no cameras, no oversight, and no proper documentation. In any other setting, this would raise immediate red flags. In a federal election, it should be unthinkable. Meanwhile, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith was focused on leadership, while others celebrated results that were still being questioned. She called for stronger protections and more transparency. She understands that democracy is built not just on appearances, but on trust, and that trust must be earned through action and accountability. In contrast, Mark Carney's early celebration came before the results were even finalized. The public reaction was swift and intense. Footage showing ballots stored next to everyday household items only added to the growing doubts. Canadians were watching, and they weren't convinced by vague reassurances. They expect answers, and they deserve a process that reflects the seriousness of their vote. Canadians across the country are speaking up. Thousands of comments, posts, and questions are flooding in across every platform. Why are we still using pencils for ballots? Why were some ballots stored in private homes? These aren't partisan concerns. This is a national conversation about trust in the democratic process. From coast to coast, Canadians are expressing real concern, not just about the outcome, but about the integrity of the system itself. When people head to the polls, they should feel confident that their vote is protected and counted properly. If that trust is shaken, it undermines the foundation of our entire system. While some political leaders were quick to celebrate uncertain results, others called for clarity and reform. Premier Danielle Smith, for example, didn't offer vague reassurances, she offered concrete solutions. Where Mark Carney's team responded with prepared statements and legal language, Smith focused on transparency, accountability, and common sense. This isn't Smith's first time stepping up on national issues. She's previously challenged federal overreach in Alberta's energy sector, opposed legislation like Bill C-69, and consistently pushed back against decisions that impact Western provinces unfairly. While some focus on optics and messaging, others are focused on restoring public trust. And in a time when faith in institutions is already fragile, Canadians are making it clear, they want facts, they want accountability, and they want leadership that puts citizens first. This isn't just about one riding or one election. It's about the kind of country we want moving forward, one where every vote counts, every process is transparent, and no citizen is left wondering whether their voice was truly heard. We have to ask ourselves, do we want a country where elections are run like paperwork formalities, or one where every vote truly counts, leaders are held accountable, and democracy means more than just a well-edited highlight reel? To those who say, it's just a pencil, let's put that into perspective. Would you sign a mortgage, a marriage license, or your will using a pencil? Of course not. So why are we using them to mark our ballots, the very tool that gives power to the people in a democratic society? This moment calls for serious reflection. If Elections Canada cannot meet basic standards for ballot security and transparency, then perhaps it's time for the provinces to take a stronger role. Premier Danielle Smith has already shown what leadership can look like, willing to challenge Ottawa, demand better, and stand up for citizens who feel unheard. Canadians deserve more than celebrations built on shaky ground and outdated voting methods. They deserve truth. They deserve transparency. And above all, they deserve leaders who treat democracy with the seriousness it requires, not as a photo op at to Mark Carney. Your celebration may have been premature. Public trust in this process is shaken, and real questions remain unanswered. Confidence is earned, not assumed, and to Premier Smith, thank you for standing firm, speaking clearly, and showing Canadians that strong leadership still exists. Even if it's not coming from the federal level, this isn't over. If you care about protecting democracy, share this message, subscribe for more updates, and let others know what's at stake, because this isn't just a political story. It's about the future of Canada.